Recording. Hello and good evening. This is David Braslow, and with me is Yen Liu. We're here to talk to you tonight about the Bates Outing Club in the 1980s. This is a presentation of the BOC 100th Centennial Committee. The general plan for this evening is to go through an introduction, have a series of photo presentations about Erum, Clambake, Winter Carnival, hikes and trips, cabins and trails, water sports, and the Ma Bell Award, coupled with some intermixed stories. And then we'll talk about the Ma Bell Award and have an epilogue before we switch to the live moderated discussions. So without further ado, you're going to get two different perspectives tonight. One from me, a self-described country mouse who came to Bates from a small hamlet in New York called Katona, primarily because of the Outing Club. And Yen?
And hi, I'm Yen Liu. I am the city mouse. I'm also class of '84. I arrived at Bates in the September of 1980 with a busload of Grateful Dead fans from New York City. I thought coming to Lewiston, Maine, the second largest city in Maine, would not be so different than New York. Boy, was I wrong. Not having a subway or commuter train, I was stranded until I encountered the Outing Club booth. For the younger crowd, the Outing Club booth was located outside the Old Common in Chase Hall. Here, trips are posted, and it's usually being staffed by a very eager Outing Club council member looking for sign-up victims. As a New York City kid, my greatest outdoor adventure was a Girl Scout trip with a cabin and showers and outhouse with running water. I signed up for an easy beginner's trip. Anyone could join a walk at Wolf Neck State Park. No equipment, just comfortable walking shoes, and transportation was provided. It is a walk in the park. And I'll let David continue.
So for our first segment here, we'll talk a little bit about the Erum, which in the 1980s was in Hathorne Hall. This is a picture of the entrance to the Erum. It looks largely like this today. The biggest difference is that in the 80s, in front of or behind Hathorne Hall, right on the side opposite of the quad, was Andrews Road. This was a road and parking area that separated Hathorne Hall and Lane Hall. Today, it's the Bates Walk, a pedestrian-only walkway. But in the 80s, you could drive right up to the entrance to the Erum. This is what it looked like as you came in the Erum door. We're in the basement of Hathorne Hall, exposed piping, exposed brick and structure of the building. There was a desk here along with a price list. And if I remember correctly, I think there was outrage when we raised the prices to something like $3 for a tent for the weekend or $5 for a whole downhill ski package. Which included boots, poles, and skis. Here's a view looking back. You can see the desk again on the right-hand side of the Erum. Two things to point out here. One is this red-colored cabinet with yellow letters, and I'll talk about that importance in a minute, but the letters, which you can't quite read in this picture, say flammable storage. And as you look all the way in the back, you'll see a piece of plywood here. The plywood blocks up an opening that we actually made without permission from Bates Maintenance because we realized that there was an area of the basement that had been walled off in the back of Eram. We opened the wall up, discovered that the area was filled with old toilets from some earlier Hathorne Hall renovation and had a dirt floor. And later in the 80s, that area became an extension to the Eram. This will give you some idea of the equipment. You're looking at cross-country ski boots, hiking boots, and maybe some winter climbing boots in this corner. It's a little bit hard to tell. And then on the opposite side, right, ice skates, downhill ski boots of various types, Henselite foam pads, sleeping bags, and then various bits and pieces of Outing Club memorabilia. Continuing in the Eram, we had a rather well-equipped workbench here, and this plays into the story about the flammable cabinet. You'll notice lots of tools on pegboards in the back, but also notice that on the workbench are various projects in progress and various cans of paints and solvents of different types. So the story, right, is that one Thursday in the spring of 1983, so the Eram hours were Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. So Thursday, there should have been nobody in the Eram, but for whatever reason, I happened to come to the Eram to check on something. And when I opened the door to the Eram, I was greeted by a loud buzzing noise, as well as the air filled with smoke. Neither the buzzing nor the smoke was a very good sign. And I backed out of the Eram door and pulled the fire alarm that was on the outside of the building, and then went back in to see what was going on. And it turned out that at the edge of this photo was an electric panel, and above the electric panel was a transformer that powered the phone buzzer system. So the way that this worked was that the various offices in Hathorne Hall all shared a single telephone line. And there was a buzzer to press with a code so that people knew whether to pick the phone up if the phone call was for them. Well, somebody had pressed their buzzer and the button got stuck in. And rather than call maintenance to come and resolve the problem, they let the buzzer go on. And it overheated the transformer. And as I walked around the corner, this board behind the tools burst into fire. Fortunately, there was a fire extinguisher adjacent to the workbench, and I was able to put the fire out about the same time that maintenance and the entire Lewiston Fire Department showed up. So fortunately, disaster averted, all because of an inadvertent visit to the Eram on a Thursday afternoon. Another photo of the Eram, the space was pretty tight, right? Sleeping bags here on the right side, climbing ropes carefully hung on the left, and then snowshoes of different types in the back. Another view, we had a pretty good supply of equipment, as you can see, and some very colorful sleeping bags. This was the cross-country ski waxing station. So in the 1980s, waxless skis were just coming onto the market, but the bulk of the skis that we had required that they be waxed. So we had a dedicated workbench in the back of the ski area that allowed us to put the appropriate wax on the skis. And you can see a supply of wax up on the shelf, as well as various tools for applying and removing wax. So moving on, clam bake. Clam bake in the 1980s was a big deal. Clambake was at Popham Beach. And when I say at Popham Beach, it was on Popham Beach. As you can see here, we were given permission to actually bring all of the equipment onto the beach. We dug a trench here, used brand new garbage cans to heat the water for boiling the lobsters and clams. And what you're looking at on the left-hand side here are bushels of corn, clams, and lobster. And we were actually able to drive on the beach. I think in this photo, they had allowed me to drive the 1972 Chevy Blazer that I had at the time, pulling the Bates canoe trailer, which we used to shuttle the supplies down from the parking lot. This will give you some idea of how well organized the setup was. You can see all the outing club members here in the area behind the serving tables, lots of trash cans, boiling water. A couple of rather happy looking outing club members, some of whom had biked from Bates to Popham Beach. This picture is kind of interesting because on one table, you've got corn, you've got hot dogs, you have potato salad, and over here is tray after tray of Commons brownies. Always a big hit at Clambake. This is the serving table, outing club members here on the right side, paying members of the Bates community on the left. Some more organization here around the cooking activities and corn shucking. You can see all the bags of charcoal, so quite the production. So this will give you some idea, right? This is a line of people waiting for their food. It was not uncommon for us to have, I want to say as many as 12 or 13 school buses full of people coming from Bates to Clambake, since in those days, not very many people had cars. The best way to get to Clambake was either on a school bus or to get yourself there on a bicycle. Pretty orderly process on an overall basis. And obviously this was a really nice day for Clambake. So we had, for those who didn't want lobsters and clams, we have hot dogs and hamburgers provided by Commons, along with corn like I talked about. And I thought this was kind of interesting because you can see that in order to keep people in line, we used ski poles and webbing to create the path to and from the food. So that's Clambake. Winter Carnival. So in this photo, you're looking at Mount David on the left, and this field on the right was called Rand Field. It was a softball field. I think it's now the location of the 280 dormitory. But in those days, this was really prime real estate for the various outing club activities. Here are some members of the outing club council. I can't remember exactly what the activity here was, but I'm guessing that it was probably at the end of an obstacle course race, judging by the various obstacles that appear in the background. And obviously we're looking across the street at the quad. Here's the front of the chapel, and I think this is Parker Hall. And then this was one of the better snow sculptures for that particular year, which was probably 1983, I'm guessing. Looks like a bucking bronco. So moving on to hikes and trips. This gives you some idea of what things were like in the 80s. This was a trip probably again in 1983. Can't tell exactly where it was, but several pretty happy looking outing club trip members. Very common destination for outing club trips, particularly on the weekend, are ocean locations, both ones nearby like Popham Beach and Reed State Park, and also Acadia National Park. And Yen, I think at this point you've got a story to add, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. So for those people who think outing club is only geared to those hardcore outdoorsy members, it is not true. So if you have, remember, I'm a New York City kid. So if you have ever wondered how come you always come upon a single shoe during a beach walk or a beach cleanup, I can explain. I took the trip to Wolf State Neck Park. There was no boardwalk or white sandy beaches, just woods and flats. It was a nice, pleasant stroll. I was warned to stay away from the flats, but I wanted to get closer to the water. After all, I'm in Maine. As I walked down the flats, I started to sink. So I made a hasty retreat. Oh, too late. Out come my foot without my nice white cats. The mud closed quicker than I could retrieve my lost footwear. I returned to the car, one shoe less, but my foot was so covered in mud, I'm not sure if anyone on the trip noticed. So somewhere in Casco Bay lies my missing soul. This misadventure did not stop me. I tried rock climbing. I skied at Sugarloaf and Sunday River. I took the trip the outing club offered to Acadia, Baxter State. I canoed on the Royal and Saco rivers. I even ate tuna fish casserole in the rain after a work trip to the Bates section of the Appalachian Trail. And who could forget again, the clam bakes and the winter carnival. I did not have any of the equipment that I needed for these adventures, but the E-Room made all these adventures possible. My fellow Batesies would find the necessary equipment to fit a petite, less than 5 foot tall, non-athletic kid from New York City. The outing club was my key to freedom away from campus, and the BOC E-Room provided the tools that was needed. And David will give you a lot more detail about the trips and what the outing club have provided.
Or at least some more pictures. So another very popular destination for the outing club was Mount Katahdin in Baxter State Park. And of course, a highlight of the Katahdin hike is the perilous traverse across the knife edge. And here is a group of outing club members. It looks like this was probably a mid-fall day. You can see that we're in the clouds, maybe above the clouds, and there's a little bit of snow as we begin traverse from Pomola Peak to the peak of Katahdin. On really nice days, right, you might find an entire group of Bates Outing Club members in the sun at the top of Mount Katahdin, and that's what's shown in this picture. And then in the winter, Bates members were known to hike up to Chimney Pond and then have a rather exciting ski back down from there. And here is somebody looking both excited and maybe frightened by that descent. Great picture here of Katahdin in the winter from down at the lake. So it was right around this time, 1982 or 1983, that the Outing Club really began to expand the equipment that we had available. I distinctly remember going to LL Bean with an Outing Club check, and LL Bean was, and I think still is, a great partner of the Outing Club, and spending something like $5,000, which at that point seemed like a huge amount of money, on an equipment purchase for that year that included several North Face VE24 mountaineering tents, which were really state of the art at the time. And they were put to very good use. This picture, I believe, is of a winter trip that we took to the high peaks of the Adirondacks in New York, and a pretty happy looking crew of Bates students on that trip. This one, perhaps a freshman hike. Again, a nice day somewhere in Maine or New Hampshire. And moving on to cabins and trails. Right. One of the trails that the Outing Club maintained is the Mount Abraham Trail, also known as Mount Abrams, right? And the Outing Club has a long history here of collaborating with the Appalachian Mountain Club to maintain the trail on Mount Abrams. I'm pretty sure that this picture is a picture of the cabin at Mount Abrams. I think this was this is close to the base of the fire tower that was, maybe still is, there at the top of the mountain, and might have been the cabin that at the time had been used by the fire wardens and was later used by people hiking on the trail. Not sure whether that cabin's still there. Maybe somebody who's on the call can fill us in. Work trips, right, often involve clearing lots of blowdowns. This is actually a picture of me with a pack frame and a chainsaw. I think also hiking on the Mount Abrams Trail, clearing a significant number of blowdowns. I think on that trip there were something like 30 or 35 blowdowns between the road and the summit. So on to water sports. This is Tarble Pool, and it had recently opened and was made available to us in the evening for kayak rolling clinics. So the kayaks and canoes were stored in the barn on Russell Street that at the time the attached building was the art studio. This was before the Olin Arts Center was built. And I believe now it's the offices for Bates Information Technology. That barn is not used any longer for the Outing Club. But we would get the kayaks from the canoe barn, carry them across Russell Street and into the gym and practice rolling and self-rescue in the kayaks in the pool. I don't know that this is still allowed today. And of course, canoe trips in Maine were a very popular endeavor. We had quite a supply of both aluminum Grumman canoes and fiberglass canoes. And I think this picture might be on the West Branch of the Penobscot. Obviously a fall picture, you can see a lineup of Outing Club canoes and the supplies. That would be a very popular trip. So on to the Ma Bell Award. So the official definition according to Outing Club records, is the 1981 Ma Bell Award, awarded occasionally to the BOC cat who's got his bell rung, risking life and limb, presumably doing some kind of BOC type activity. Since there have been so many different stories of how this award came to be, Judy Marden reached out to Laird Allen, class of '83, and Laird provided a recollection of the story that led to the Ma Bell Award. And there is the award itself. So as you can see, the award consists of a piece of Laird's Miata bicycle, the head tube and the front fork. And according to Laird, right, he's not sure exactly what street it was on, but it was definitely in Auburn, outside of the town, on a rural road with no traffic to speak of. He said the memory is deeply etched. He had his head down, stupidly, blithely, innocently. Hey, he was just 19 or 20 at the time, concentrating on the next 20 yards when he should have been looking a lot further ahead. He was probably doing 15 to 18 miles per hour. And just before he saw, before he hit it, he saw ahead of him a truck. Too late to do any good, but he was able to start braking just before he hit the truck. And he flew up, pivoting over the front axle, smashing his Bell bicycle helmet on the back of the Bell telephone truck, and then landing on both feet and both wheels. Fortunately, Laird was not seriously injured. The bicycle didn't fare so well. And as I recall, because Laird brought the bicycle to me, in the Outing Club, was he basically said, here, you can fix this, you can fix anything. And took off back to his dorm. And I started looking at the bicycle and realized that it wasn't just damaged slightly, that pretty much every part of the bicycle was damaged. Laird had asked me to let him know if any replacement parts were needed. And the plan was, at the next Outing Club meeting, to present him with the parts that were damaged and needed to be replaced. Well, it turned out that about all that didn't need to be replaced was a very small box of parts that I did hand to Laird that consisted of things like the pedals and the toe clips, the seat post, the derailleurs, and the hubs from the wheels, and that was about it. Everything else was damaged. The fork was broken. The frame was bent. The wheels were bent. It was just a total disaster. So BJ LaChance and I cut a portion of the frame off, mounted it to a board, and at the next council meeting, the ceremonial telling of this story occurred along with the presentation to Laird of the Ma Bell Award, which exists today. This is a photo from the meeting room. This is what we think might be about the approximate location of where the incident occurred. And recently, in going through some of the items that I've retained from my days at the Outing Club, I found this additional piece to the fork. In fact, you'll see that it matches the Ma Bell Award. You'll also notice that it's got a pretty interesting bend to it. So this is one of the front dropouts that I cut from the fork at the time that we made the Ma Bell Award. Laird reminded us that in addition to the Ma Bell Award, there's kind of an alumni edition of the award called the Live to Tell Club, which was instituted when he and his friend Larry Lackey, also of 1983, took off for an intercontinental bicycle tour, which has not yet been completed. So in conclusion, and as somewhat of an epilogue, Laird, right, continues his around the world bicycle trek, currently paused, and it has been for quite some time, in Thailand. Larry Lackey disputes some of the Ma Bell history and insists that Laird was pedaling uphill at the time of the collision. Judy Martin remains outing club advisor now for about 40 of the club's 100 plus years. I still fix things, oftentimes after also breaking them. And Yen and I are fortunate enough to own a 1 acre island, the little dot right here, between the ends of the two rainbow, and also in this photo in Casco Bay, which is listed on the Maine Island Trail. So we hope you enjoyed this evening's presentation. We look forward to the opportunity of chatting with people live. And if you're interested in seeing more photos or reviewing the presentation, both will be posted on the BOC 100th Google Drive.
Thank you.